Coming up in the next hour, excessive pressure on A&E consultants has the potential to put patients at risk, and 1 in 4 people embarrassed to be on benefits will speak to one of those people. It's coming up to 8 o'clock on Tuesday, the 8th of October. 40 years ago today, LBC went on the air as the news and information voice of independent radio. It's my privilege to be joined this morning by one of the original breakfast presenters, the voice of independent radio news. It's great to have him back. Yes, it's Douglas Cameron.
On FM, on your mobile and on digital radio. Proud to serve London for 40 years. This is LBC 97.3.
It's 8 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Douglas Cameron. Thousands of people will be able to apply for 95% mortgages from state-owned banks today. Royal Bank of Scotland, NatWest and the Halifax will be offering loans under the £12 billion Help to Buy scheme. But there are warnings that it could lead to another housing bubble. Director General of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Mark Littlewood, told LBC 97.3 the fears are understandable.
It's as if the government hasn't really learnt the lessons of the financial crash. Lending people large amounts of money with a very small deposit is risky and dangerous.
Doctors have warned that urgent action must be taken to ensure that A&E departments remain safe and sustainable. The College of Emergency Medicine said the units are facing intolerable pressures, with 62% of doctors warning their job is not sustainable in its current form. It's been reported that plans drawn up by the newspaper industry for a new system of press regulation have been rejected by a committee of senior ministers. LBC 97.3's political editor Tom Cheel reports.
Ahead of the full Privy Council meeting tomorrow, it's claimed senior ministers have already rejected the industry's plans for self-regulation. But it's thought a decision on alternative proposals, backed by politicians and campaigners, is also now likely to be delayed. The industry submitted its own proposals after arguing that a royal charter agreed by the parties in response to the Leveson report was too restrictive.
A powerful parliamentary committee has urged the government to put the HS2 rail link between London and the north on hold. The Treasury Accounts Select Committee is warning of serious shortcomings in the project's research. The world's first malaria vaccine could be ready in the next 2 years following successful trials in Africa. The jab, which triggers the immune system, is the most advanced development of its kind. Eleanor Riley from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine says the vaccine isn't a complete cure, but it will make a very big impact.
When you've got something like 600,000 children dying of malaria every year, if you can reduce that by a third or a half, that's a lot of children's lives that have been saved.
And LBC 97.3, as you may have realised by now, is celebrating its 40th birthday. On the 8th of October 1973, LBC made broadcasting history by becoming the UK's first commercial radio station.
This is London Broadcasting, the news and information voice of independent radio. Welcome to LBC. It's 6 o'clock, October the 8th. My name is David Jessel. This is the morning show, and here's the news.
Well, today, LBC has its biggest audience since records began, with more than 1 million listeners. London Mayor Boris Johnson, who has a regular phone-in show on LBC 97.3, says it sets the agenda with its programmes.
I know that whenever I'm on LBC, I'm standing to attention, and a station that I think is much valued and much loved by people in London.
Former LBC reporter and now Channel 4 news anchor Jon Snow thinks radio has gone from strength to strength.
I think the amazing thing about the age we live in is that actually radio has been reborn. The power of the podcast, the power of the instant, the power of the availability of radio in the car, on the head. Nobody realised it would sustain, and it has sustained. And radio is the ultimate medium. The pictures in radio are far, far better than they are in television.
And there's much more on our website to mark LBC's 4 decades of broadcasting. And there's a special programme, LBC at 40, tonight at 9 o'clock. The FTSE 100 will start the day at 64.37 after closing down 16 points yesterday. And London's weather, any early mist will soon clear to leave a bright morning, staying warm through the day, highs of 19 degrees Celsius. Right now in Leicester Square, it's 15 degrees. LBC 97.3. It's 3 minutes past 8.
Absolutely faultless. Douglas Cameron, I have to tell all the listeners now, there was not a single moment of rehearsal or preparation. He came in, well, you came into the studio just as you left with absolute professionalism and excellence, Douglas. It's superb.
It must be said that everyone in the newsroom gave me the maximum of help, and with trepidation in their hearts, they got the bulletin to me about 7:45 and said, will you read that about 15 times before you go on?
And then we just hope nothing happened for those 15 minutes.
Well, it makes a difference from when we used to get the news,
Yes.
Nick, and even before you started doing this marvellous programme of yours in the morning. It used to be 8 o'clock and 30 seconds past 8, and the news wasn't there yet. And Simon Bates, who I know works in this building now, I've just had a word with him. He used to do the morning programme.
He did.
And Simon, with his knowledge of music, used to sing, "The news will be a little late today." And sometimes it was pretty late, but this was marvellous.
Now, we've just been, lastly, Douglas, reflecting on the time you had to read a bulletin, and you had to read at a fair old pace, because otherwise it would literally have gone up in front of your hands. It was when someone set fire to your bulletin sheet, wasn't it?
It was. It was, many listeners will remember, 1986 was the hurricane. The dreadful hurricane which destroyed London almost for half a day in the southeast. And, of course, LBC, all the generators went out of the window. And they came in and they said, well, you've got to read the bulletin. The problem was that north of Watford, nobody who enjoying a reasonable October morning knew anything about it. And I used to read the news which went out to all the radio stations. They were having a lovely October morning. So what's all the fuss about? They said, well, we're out of action here. So one of the subs had a great idea. He said, well, read the news and I'll get a candle to it. Unfortunately, the bottom of the news sheet caught fire, and I just got to the end of the story before it all went up in flames.
Those stories and others like them will be recounted tonight on LBC 97.3 with Clive Bull. LBC at 40 from 9. Douglas Cameron, you don't look a day older than when you left this studio, however many years ago. Privileged to have you in, sir. Thank you so much for coming, and look after yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. You listen to LBC 97.3. It's 6 after 8.
LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. This is London's biggest conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.